Hi everyone, it's Mike here. So again today I'm going to be playing in my Black Dilutions journal. Although my 7 Days of Halloween series has now finished for 2018, I'm still kind of in that Halloweeny creative kind of mood. So I found some really great images on the internet in a royalty-free and public domain source website. And I found some really creepy kind of images that I thought would go great in an art journal page. So that's what I'm going to be doing today. So this is a page in my Dilutions journal that I've used for kind of mop up, which is why it's dirty in the background, but most of that's going to get covered over anyway. So it doesn't make any difference. And my colour palette today, I'm going to be using some colours from Indigo Blue, and I'm going to be using some what they call Olive Waistcoat, which is a kind of olivey colour, if you like, that kind of darkish green. I'm going to be using Hot Cocoa, which is a nice brown colour, but I'll need to give it a shake because I can see some of the pigments in there have separated at the bottom, so it will need a bit of a shake up. And I'm also going to have some orangey highlights. So I have got two kind of Halloweeny colours in there with the orange and the green, but I'm going to use some brown as well, and possibly I may add some white splatters towards the end. Depends how the mood takes me. So to start off with, I'm going to create my background using the paints, but also building up some layers on some collage elements using a napkin that somebody sent to me recently in Happy Mail. This was with the Happy Mail that I got from Monique van Dijk. And what I've done is I've just torn one of the napkins in half. I've already removed the plies from the back of that one, and I've just got the last ply to remove from the back of that one. But look, there's still a little bit of pattern on that one, so that is not going to get thrown away because that can be used on a different page at a different time. So I'm going to glue down these napkins. I like these ones because they have a black background already with that kind of gold damasky kind of baroque ornamentation on them, so they're absolutely perfect for what I want to do. So I'm going to just grab my page protectors, which I haven't used for a while. There we go, and I'm just going to slide that underneath because I want to glue these down with matte medium. So I'll do this one first, put that safely to one side because I don't want to splatter everything. I've got some Daler Rowney matte medium that was also sent to me in Happy Mail from Bet Jacob, and I'm just going to slap a load of that down onto there, grab a brush and literally just go all over the page. Now obviously serviettes and napkins are quite thin, tissue thin, so this will soak in pretty much immediately. And I'll just go over the top. I'm not too bothered if it goes wrinkly or bubbly or anything like that, because it's just great for getting in the background. Because it's matte, it won't be shiny, so they're absolute brilliant for adding into the background of your art journal pages. And I have a huge pile of serviettes and napkins of all different shapes, sizes, for all occasions throughout the year. So I've got lots for Christmas, I've got lots for just general everyday ones, in a huge pile. And I always say you can never have too many, but actually you can. I end up, if I've got like multiples of the same pattern, I tend to share it with my friends. So okay, so I'll get plenty of that matte medium on there, and we'll get this one laid down as well. I'm just trying to line it up a little bit with the edges of the page. Doesn't matter if it goes off a little. I don't want it to go over too much, and of course it will stretch a tiny amount because it's only thin paper. Oh, I haven't got enough there, and of course it does rip very easily as well, so you have to be really careful and gentle with it, not go too heavy-handed. Just just add a little bit more on there. That should do me. That should do me. Make sure it all gets covered, soaks in really nicely, because that black then starts to disappear off into the page and kind of blends itself. That's a good coating all the way. Of course, if some of it doesn't stick down properly or tears, it just adds to that kind of grungy effect, which is so perfect for Halloween. Okay, so now we need to get that dry. Polypropylene sheeting. This was a food cutting mat from our local supermarket. I get them in packs of 5 or 6. They're so cheap, they're almost disposable, but obviously I don't throw them away at the end of each one every time I've used them. I do wash them down and clean them occasionally, but they're so inexpensive that it doesn't matter if you do damage them, because they're very, very inexpensive to replace. Okay, so I'm going to get this dry. So as per usual, I'll do this, get it dry, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I don't know whether it's the weather today or whether it's just because I've put on so much of that matte medium. It's actually taken a lot longer to dry today than it normally does, but hey ho, it's just one of those things. For you, it takes just the same length of time. For me, behind the scenes, it takes a lot longer, or has been taking a lot longer. So most of it is now dry. It's still a little bit tacky, but dry enough for me to be able to work on. So the next thing that I want to do is I want to bring in some book text. So I've got a sheet of dictionary text. Now this is from a scan of a dictionary page because it's got the word scary on it. I didn't want to pull the page out and use it up, because once it's gone, so I scanned it instead first, and I've always got one on hand, hence the reason why it's blank on the back. This one are a couple of sheets from an old copy of Gray's Anatomy. So this one is for the eye, and this one is for an arm. And again, I don't just want to use up all the pages in my Gray's Anatomy, so before I use these pages, I tend to scan them. So I've got a nice set of Gray's Anatomy images, so I don't mind once I've used this one. It's cool, I know that I've always got a copy elsewhere. So I'm going to tear up some of these Gray's Anatomy strips, because I'm going to be using these in the background as well. So probably one page will do it, but I got 2 just in case. Prepare for all eventualities. Be prepared. There you go. I was never a Boy Scout or a Girl Guide. I know what you're thinking. Okay, so let's just get rid of that straight edge at the top, because we don't need that. And let's find the one from the top of the page, because we're not going to need that straight edge either. There we go. And then just rip off. Get rid of some of these straight edges, because I just want to add these bits of book text again into the background. We'll be adding paint over these to blend them into the background. One across there, and this shorter one over here. And I don't normally like to try and carry graphics over the crease, because they tend to affect the way that it folds. So I like to kind of stagger it a little bit, just to make it a bit less jointed, if you know what I mean. Maybe put a piece over there, and then let's try this dictionary page as well. Just 2 different formats of writing, both. One's an encyclopedia, One is a dictionary, but that's fine, don't mind that. Just slightly different formats, just all ads. And then we can just layer over the top. So let's just get started and start gluing some of these down. We're using the matte medium again, so it may take a while for me, but not necessarily for you. So I will get on and start gluing all this down, and then I'll jump to the bit where I'm all done and dry. It's the magic of YouTube. God, there's quite a lot there. No wonder it's taking ages to dry. Probably my own fault. Okay, now as sometimes happens, you get carried away. So I've put more on there than I'd kind of planned to. So I just now need to get it dry. So I will be right back. So the matte medium is now dry. And because I've used a matte medium, you don't really get a huge amount of shine. There is actually some shine on there, which it shouldn't really have with it being matte. So I want to knock that back a little bit more just to make sure that there's no shine on there, but also I want to give myself a nice base for spreading some paint around. So I'm going to use some clear gesso. This is the Art Basics clear gesso from Prima, and it's part of the Finnabair signature range. So I'm going to just give the entire page a coat of that clear gesso, which gives it a really good grounding for adding colour over the top, doing colour washes and that kind of stuff. Doesn't take long, you don't need huge amounts. It's milky colour, as you can see, but dries completely clear, hence the name. Who would have thought it, eh? Okay, so that's one side done. Get it in the middle as well, so I can make sure I know everything's going to be covered. I'm going right up to the edges this time because I don't know how far I'm going to go with the paint. This also helps to seal everything in because you've got another layer of medium over the top. Going to end up being quite a thickish page. These are the type of pages that make your journals really bulky, but that's okay. Pages in this black Dilutions aren't really all that thick to start off with. They used to be, and then on the second release of these journals the thickness of the paper went right down. I don't know whether that was because it was cheaper for them to manufacture or they got more pages in. I don't know. I've never really asked Diane. It's not the sort of question you like to ask somebody, is it? Right, okay. Let's get the gesso dry and then I'll be back. 90% creativity, but out of that, almost 100% drying time. Okay, so page is all dry. It's still a little bit warm, but that's okay. So what I want to do now is add some colour to the background of the page now. So I've got my indigo blue hot cocoa. Because I've put the gesso down on the page, that's going to help to manoeuvre the paint around. So I'm just going to take some from the lid and just add some across the top there, about halfway there, again up here, some down there, and then I'm going to bring in a baby wipe. Drop that in some water, and then using the baby wipe, obviously this is damp itself, and then I can use that to manoeuvre the paint all around the page. So just that little bit, and then where I want to, I can then start just stripping it back to reveal some of that pattern. Leaving it darker in areas and lighter in others. Dabbing it, and then again the same thing at this side before it dries, forgetting that the page was a little bit warm. And then just turn that back round, find a cleanish spot, almost a cleanish spot. If you want to bring in a fresh baby wipe, if yours is getting a bit too grungy, and then you can dab and mottle some of that pattern showing through, and then just blend it with your baby wipe. Create a nice kind of effect. Just dab it a bit off the edge there. That's it. Just work it until you're happy. That'll do for me. So again, more drying time. We'll do that, and then I'll be back. Right, so the paint's now all dry. So I've now got a really kind of dirty, grungy background page in which to start building some more colour on. So I'm going to bring in that green, that olive waistcoat, just give it a shake, so I want to get some of the paint on the lid. And then I'm just going to lift it up. I've got a cosmetic sponge, and I'm bringing in one of my newish stencils. This is Carnival number 2. So I'm just going to pick up some of that nice green paint. I could do with that page protector just to use as a little bit of a palette, just to pounce that up and down, just to work the paint in on the sponge. I don't know if you can see what I'm doing off this end of the out the frame. So just working the sponge so I'm getting the paint embedded in there. So once I'm happy with how much paint is loaded up, I can then lay my stencil down and then just start going over. I'll bring that in to add a little bit of a nice kind of pattern into the background. And of course, you can go over it more than once if you want to. Just add that into the middle. Kind of nice subtle shades. I like this green teamed up with the brown. It gives a nice colour. And you can leave that to dry, and then once it's dried you can go back in and add some more, like a second layer if you want to. But I think I'm kind of happy with that, so I just need a little bit more paint. Never tend to use a lot taking it from the lid like this. I've had my indigo blue paints for quite some time. Bring that pen right the way into the page. With this being a 6-inch stencil, or almost 6 inches, with an 8-inch page, you do tend to get quite a good coverage. You can cover quite a large area of your art journal page without having to go to the expense of buying really big stencils. So Carnival number 2, this one, and Carnival number 1. I still have some. If you're interested, they're on my website right now. Obviously can ship internationally. It was a little bit of a shameless plug, and I think a little bit more over here. I like this pattern because it's kind of got the stars, but when you look at it actually it's more, has actually got circles in there as well. It's a really good all round kind of background stencil. And as an art journaler, you can never have too many all round background stencils. Yeah, like that. So let's get that dry and then I'll be back. Okay, that's my green all nice and dry. Now I should mention that obviously depending on the brand of your preferred paint, it depends on whether or not your paints are opaque or translucent. Obviously the translucent ones will show through what's behind. The opaque ones tend to, or the heavier body ones tend to cover more. I like the indigo blue ones because they're kind of in the middle. You can still see some of the writing through the painting areas. Sometimes it does go really opaque, like down here, and then other times, you know, you get some of that showing through. So that's what I like about the indigo blue paint. Okay, so the next step I'm going to do is actually stick on some of my focal images. So my focal images for this page are going to be these creepy dolls. Love those. And I've also got this one over here and another creepy doll head that I'm going to stick just at a slight angle as though it's resting up against his knees. So I'm going to grab my glue. I'm not going to stick them down with matte medium. I'm actually going to stick them down with normal collage glue. This is if we can open the bottle up. I go through a ton of this. This is the same kind of stuff as and I've been asked about this a couple of times. My spirit glue is the Collall multi-purpose spirit glue. If you can't get hold of this or it's too expensive for you where you are, have a look for this stuff instead. The Tombow Aqua monoliquid glue, because this does exactly the same thing. For me, this one's more expensive than this one, but where you are, that may be reversed. This one may be cheaper than this one. So, but it's the same kind of thing. So it doesn't really make any difference which one you use. it'll still work if your nozzle's not blocked up like mine. I haven't actually used this one for a little while. Probably just wants a pin. But I have used this one. So I know this one's going to work. There we go. And with it being spirit glue, if any spills out the sides, it doesn't matter, because you can just rub it off and it goes like rubber. But this glue also has the added benefit of giving you the wiggle room. It doesn't grab straight away. You can maneuver it. There is wiggle room. And we do like wiggle room. Okay. Creepy dolls. God, I love them. And then a really big focal image. Again, I printed this one on my inkjet printer, the Epson WF 2630, and I'm still getting questions. You're still asking me what printer I'm using. So it's there on the screen right now, bottom left. Write it down. It uses the Durabright ink, which is permanent when dry, unlike other inkjet printers. There's that wiggle room, look. I'll just slide it into position, just right up against the edge of the page. And if I get any on, just rub it, and it just goes into tiny little like rubber balls and rubs away. Perfect. Love it. Now, once I'd cut out my little dolls, got them to the right shape or the right size that I wanted them in my Adobe Photoshop, I did actually do a smaller version, but I realised I wanted it bigger, so I did another one. Once I'd cut them out, I did go around the edges with my black soot distress marker just to hide those raw white edges, which I think does help when it blends or adding it to the page, because it just helps to blend them in a little bit better, so you don't see those raw edges at the end. I just like it. Okay, so next job, I want to add some more stenciling, but this time I'm going to be using the Burning Bonfire Orange. Obviously, you can use whatever brand you like if you're trying to or want to reproduce something similar. And I'm going to grab the orange, just work that in to my sponge so you can see it. As you can see, now I am aware that I'm going to be using orange on top of brown, and this isn't necessarily the most matte of paints, so it won't be 100% opaque, but I'm also going to be using a new stencil. So this is called Small Sci-Fi Circles, so this will be one of two that I'll be releasing in November. So there's one big sci-fi circle, and this one is called Small Sci-Fi Circles, and this will be available for my angels to purchase first in a little week or two, actually probably in a couple of days. I'll probably try and get it out in a couple of days, and then from the beginning of November for everybody else, because that's one of the perks of being an angel. You can get your hands on my stencils a bit earlier. Right, and it just adds a nice little bit, thank you Mr. Phone, a little detail into the background. just lightens it a little. Then we'll do one down here at the bottom. If I was using a lighter colour as my base rather than the brown, this would stand out a lot more. It is disappearing into the background because it is brown. Like that. Okay, let's get that paint out of the way. Let's get this layer dry. And then we can move on. Okay, now that layer of orange paint is dry, I can now start sticking down my quote or my slogan, phrase, whatever you want to call it, onto my journal page. So I've got some of the Tim Holtz I can't remember what these are called now, alpha chips. And these are the ones that look like ransom letters. So I've gone through, pulled out all the letters that I need and put them into little piles just up here already. And I'm just going to add a little bit of glue onto the back and just stick them straight down onto the art journal page. So, not going to need a lot of paint on the, or paint, glue. And like I said before, they look like ransom letters, so you don't have to get them exactly lined up. These are a good little resource to have if you're not all that good at doing hand lettering, that kind of thing. But you can cut your own out of magazines if you want to, if you've got the time and the inclination to do so. Okay, let's speed this along, I think. Okay, so they're glued and stuck down, but I've still got a little bit of wiggle room to be able to manoeuvre the letters if I want to. So I just want to push those back a little bit that way. That's it. Love it. Cool. So I'm going to give that a few minutes to dry and then I'll be right back. And in the meantime, I'm going to go put the kettle on. So the glue's pretty much had time to set and dry. There might be just a little bit of movement if I'm really, really careful. I won't disturb them from where they are. So I've got my black Stabilo all pencil, or I thought I had. That's a different pencil altogether. That's not the one I want. That's the one that I want. Easy to mix the two up, look. But that's the one I want. What do had much fun with that one. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a little bit of the pencil just down at the bottom here, just to create a little bit of ground for these decapitated, that decapitated head there, he says. And I'm also going to add a little bit just on the bottom here, just to kind of add a little bit of like a drop shadow effect. I shall activate this with water because it's a water soluble pencil. So if you've got one of those watercolour pencils, this or that will work just as easy. So I've got a little bit of water in my water brush, so I shall just activate that and brush it under, just to create a little bit of a ground, a drop shadow. And then do the same thing up here. Just using the brush just to push right up underneath the letters and just work it down, just to kind of blend it a little bit. Once I've had a little bit of a second or two just to adjust, if you just go back underneath again, you can just break the colour up a little bit if it's too dark. Let it drip down maybe a little bit. Give it a bit of a jog, let it drip down a bit. Okay, let's give that a quick blast. There we go. So it's all dyed back nicely. You've just got a little bit of shadow, just helps those letters pop a little bit, and then we've created a little bit of a ground for these creepy Cupid dolls. And that's what that's called. I could be wrong though. For that to stand on. So I'm happy with the way that's turned out. It is fairly creepy enough. I'll just grab a pen. Where's my number 8 gone? Pens tend to go walkies. Come on, where are you? There it is. I don't think I'm going to do any more on this. I was thinking about adding some white splatters. In fact, what the heck, let's do it anyway. So I've got, when I say white, I've got some Dina Wakley Buff acrylic paint, slightly off-white. Didn't want to use white, so I'm going to just add a tiny bit just onto that mat there, and then grab my fan brush, that's dipped in water. You see how it's not quite white. I'm hoping you can see it anyway. Just cover up my dolls a little bit. Well, now you see. Should have done that from the start. Well, not from the start, but you know what I mean. Just helps to blend, bring everything together. Haha, love it. Okay, let me just dry that off quickly. Okay, so you can see how that buff paint has disappeared. It's not quite as bright as the white would have been. So it just, off-white is enough, I think, just to offset the darker colours in the background, and that white would have been too much of a pop. So I'm really happy with the way that's turned out. Definitely creepy. So all I have to do now is just sign and date it at the bottom here, and today's date is, of course, he says the 16th. Still plenty of time to maybe squeeze in a couple more Halloween themed pages before the day itself. That's all from me for now. Don't forget, if you've enjoyed the page, please give it a thumbs up, share the video with your friends, and if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel already, you can do so by clicking the button at the end of the video. That's all from me for now. I will see you again very, very soon. Bye for now. I'd like to say a huge thank you to all of my angels, because without you, these videos would not be possible. Thank you.